Fishing storm fronts can produce unparalleled angling opportunities. There's no universal strategy that guarantees success, and often the most effective tactic is to simply be present. So today, let's take a walk through what I call the perfect storm.
Thanks for tuning in. Before we go any further, I'd like to fill you in on the making of this video and the B-roll that you're going to be watching. This video was filmed while fishing a recent front here on the California Delta, and all the footage was taken in about an hour and a half time span. There was on again, off again rain, so I wasn't filming the entire hour and a half. I was able to capture only about half of the great action that I had actually experienced during this particular front, so keep that in mind as we continue. Believe me, I had a really great morning. Let's get back to the video.
I fish fronts, I fish them year-round, and I fished them for years. And I found that here on the California Delta, the mild warm fronts that come in from the south are usually the most productive. Fronts coming from the north tend to be colder, they move much faster, and they produce shorter bite windows. The southern fronts tend to move slower and produce longer periods of productive fishing. The bigger the front, the more severe the weather prediction, the harder it is to time the storm. Everything moves at an accelerated pace, so you need to make quicker decisions. Remember, bite windows can be short, so a couple of wrong decisions can lead to an unproductive outing. Let's talk about the perfect storm. For me, the perfect storm comes from the south. It's a warm storm that moves slowly. Slower moving storms give you more time to make the decisions such as location changes and bait selections. I like a light breeze, 5 to 10 miles an hour. These light breezes allow for the cloud cover to move slower, or even better, stay in one place. I don't like huge air temperature variances, but with that being said, consistent water temperature is much more important than fluctuating air temperatures. Light rain's okay, it's not necessary. Heavy rain will not stop the bite, but if you're not prepared, it can make for unpleasant fishing conditions. So when the perfect storm arrives, be prepared. Timing is 100% the most important piece to the puzzle. Being successful when it comes to chasing frontal system bite windows, it's a little like life in general. Half of your success will often rely on just showing up. So with that being said, when you find them, when you're there on the right day, you're there at the right time, it's going to be worth the trouble. So, for those of you who are still with me, let's continue. We'll talk about bait selection and strategies. All right, it's time to talk a little bit about strategy, and I'll also be throwing in some random thoughts when it comes to fishing these frontal systems. And I'll start out with what I found to be a pretty common pattern, and that pattern is that fronts don't push fish from productive areas. So start your fishing in water that you know and water that you've experienced success on prior trips. And I'll say this twice. Fishing a front is never the time to go out and search for new water. One more time. When you're fishing a frontal system, that's not the time to go out and search out new water. So where are we going to start? Let's just take some general philosophies that I have, and I'll let you take it from there. I like to start in an area that offers a variety of varied fish holding structure. So let's say your number one spot happens to be a rock wall with a nice trough. It's a good place to start. There's always fish that hold in those troughs. But as I'm putting my plan together, I like to think about and maybe take a mental survey of the surrounding area, and I'll try to note all the other productive holding water that may be in that area that can expand my options. So if my number one spot is a rock wall, I might think about where maybe the nearest Thule Island is. That Thule Island may offer a couple of points and maybe a flat. That's different structure than what I'm going to find on that rock wall. I'll also maybe try to think of where man-made structure is, where a flooded island may be. Maybe I'll think about the nearest Thule line bank with hard bottom. These are all going to offer things that are nearby and a variety of different structures that the fish may be holding to. So what I'm getting at is you simply have to make a plan and also have a backup plan that could be implemented quickly and easily. So if that number one plan doesn't pan out for you, you can move within, I'll say, a 5-minute time frame and fish another structure that the fish may be a little more active on. Now, as a general rule, as these fronts approach, fish tend to move shallow. They'll feed heavily, maybe for a 15-minute bite window, maybe for an hour bite window. If you're lucky, you'll get an hour and a half or 2 hours out of a bite window. And as that front passes through, the fish will move to the deeper water. So if I'm on my number one spot as the front is approaching and my strike zone has been, let's say the past couple weeks I've been fishing out there and I've been catching my fish in primarily 5 to 8 feet of water, I'll start fishing in 5 feet of water and I will always move shallow as the front is approaching. Now as the front passes, I tend to work back out to that 5 to 8 feet of water where my prior trips have been most successful. I'm doing that because as this storm front approaches, I'm expecting the fish to go on a massive feeding frenzy. Generally, when fish feed, they tend to move shallow. As the front passes, they'll go right back out to that original, I'll say 5 to 8 foot of water, again where the prior trips have been most productive. Remember, when it comes to fishing storm fronts, there's no exact science. So I want you to take what I am sharing with you as general rules. You might want to start out fishing that deep to shallow type strategy. If it doesn't pay off, give it a short leash, move back out to that deeper water, and then fish the deeper water.
All the fish, when it was raining, were all about 2 to 3 pounds. They're still biting, but they're smaller fish. But boy, they're just all over. Oh, that's a good one there.
All right, we're going to talk a little bit about bait selection, but before we do, I'd like to reiterate something that I talked about at the beginning of the video. And we talked about how fishing these storm fronts is not an exact science. I want you to really keep that in mind, because as you listen to the strategies and the tips that I am sharing with you today, they are general strategies and tips. Remember, as these storm fronts come through, they may be as short as 15 to 20 or 30 minutes. So you'll have to make quick decisions. And so my suggestion is, if what you're doing isn't working, do not be afraid to keep that strategy on a short leash. Change your strategy. Go to plan B. Always keep that in the back of your mind when you're fishing storm fronts. So with that, let's talk about bait selection. This is an easy one for me. As the storm fronts approach, I generally start with the same baits and the same patterns that were productive prior to the front. Now, we're all going to have to use a little common bass fishing knowledge and sense when it comes to the time of year that we're fishing and maybe the particular body of water that you are on. As these fronts approach, there will almost always be a calm before the storm. This is when that water just lays flat. There's no wind, you've got cloud cover, and it is perfect conditions for throwing topwaters. When it's calm like this, I like to throw smaller baits, smaller poppers, things like Ricos, and small walking baits like the River to Sea Bubble Walker. These are baits that you can cover water with. You're going to get an idea of how many fish are in the area and how aggressive they are. They'll also pick up some big fish. Now, as that storm starts moving in, when the wind picks up, you get a little water chop. I'll go to faster, more aggressive moving baits like buzz baits, whopper ploppers, and larger walking baits. This can be the time of the storm that these fish are really starting to break loose, things are happening, and you're going to get some amazing strikes on these faster moving baits. When it comes to color, take your choice. For me, it's dark sky, dark bait, a light sky, a light bait. The speed, the cadence, and where you place the bait are going to be keys. If I'm head hunting, I will also have a 6 to 8 inch wake bait on deck, and I'll put those out there just to look for a few bigger fish. You don't have to get crazy. Don't go out and buy these 10 and 12 inch baits. A 6 to 8 inch wake bait will bring up bigger fish. They're fun to catch, and you don't need a lot of special gear to throw them with. When you find that either the topwater baits are not producing, or maybe the topwater bite is starting to fade, that's when I'll go to subsurface baits. And again, this is seasonally dependent what I'll be using, but generally the standard crankbaits, rattle trap type baits, jerk baits, chatter baits can all produce fast action, and these are baits that all cover water quickly. I stay away from worms, plastics, jigs, things that I have to be flipping and moving slow. You just can't cover enough water. And remember, these storm fronts are coming in fast. We're not looking to catch a few fish out here. Remember, we're not out chasing these fronts to look for average bites. What we're looking for is chaos. We're looking for a memory maker out there. So generally, when you find these storms, after the mayhem of a good front, you're going to sit down, you're going to take a deep breath, and you're going to ask yourself, what just happened? It'll take a few seconds and you'll think, yeah, I just hit the perfect storm. So with that, guys, I want to thank you for watching. And if you have any questions, make sure you hit me up in the comments. I'm hoping that I get to see each and every one of you out there on the river sooner or later. And when we meet, it'd even be better if it was just before one of these perfect storms come in. So again, thanks for watching. I wish all of you good luck, and we'll see you guys on the river.